You're very welcome to another session. We're going to focus on how will AI impact construction procurement. So we've got a bit of a dual session happening here, whereby we've got some people are tuning in via the webinar. There will be some screen shares going on, obviously, because we can see the visuals, and then we also have people tuning in via our podcast as well. So just for the sake of people that are listening, we'll also try and keep it good explanations around any visuals that we show. The subject matter is about how AI will impact construction procurement. I'm joined today by Niall, who is our head of product here in LiveCosts, who has been sort of doing some research over the last few years, looking at AI. And I suppose we just want to uncover how we believe AI is going to impact construction procurement and show you some examples of what's been happening in there as well. So without further ado, I'll introduce our head of product, Niall. Niall, how are you?
Yeah, thanks, Ciaran. Cheers. Yeah, all good. Good to be here.
Right. So there's loads of stuff that we could cover here. Right. We've been starting to use AI in our day-to-day operations within our own company, right? So we're using it across our CRM, we're using it in across our website, and we see the impact that other companies are having with putting AI in, and we've been starting, I suppose, to look at how AI will impact, I suppose, LiveCosts and construction companies, and in particular the types of construction companies that we deal with. So can you just give us a little intro to what, like, you're the head of product here, but your job is to go out and research these types of solutions or these types of problems. Can you just maybe talk about where that started for you, and I suppose how it's been going for you, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, on all the calls, we'd always ask what software you're using, and a lot of the time in the construction businesses, they're only using a small amount of software. They're using maybe an estimating software, they might be using an accounting software, and maybe a few other bits and pieces. So they might not come across as much software maybe as we do, because we use, I don't know, 50 pieces of software to run what we do. As you said, CRMs and chats and messaging services, all sorts of stuff. And all we see in those products is AI. And it's, largely what I see is it's just trying to save you time, so I'm using it on a daily basis in these products, and some of them save you a mountain of time. Some of them, it's just kind of bells and whistles. It's not really doing anything. So like for me, it's probably taken a while to figure out what to do with it. Like how could it be useful rather than just throwing it in there and giving you no information or doing nothing for you? How could we make it useful for us? And say we haven't seen massive examples in it in construction just yet. But we have a couple of ideas ourselves.
There is that temptation just to, like, add the shiny object, isn't it, to the product?
I was desperate to get it in there because it's sort of like the LiveCosts story. Get it started first, and then we'll figure out as we go and figure out what people use it for. But it was initially, we were thinking maybe you could just ask questions of what's happening in LiveCosts, but unless it has a purpose, unless you explain what that purpose is, no one's going to use it. So that was kind of canned, and we just went back to the drawing board. And then as we were going through, found it by accident, I think it would be the best say. We found something by accident and said, oh, actually that's an angle to go at, and we tried it. And the shocking thing about it is how quickly it moves. It's shocking. Like we've been working on it in the background, working on our own kind of models and stuff like that, but it's shocking how quickly the software itself is moving, or the AI is moving itself. It's just shocking. It really is. So the quicker we get it in there, the quicker we can benefit from it.
Yeah. No, and one of the things we've been pretty adamant on is that, like, it has to solve a problem. Like, there's no point in putting stuff in there because it's shiny and it looks great and it's technically brilliant. But if it's not solving a problem, who cares, really, right? So, like, there's loads of examples about how we could show the impact of AI across construction procurement. But I think what we'll do is we might just model out a process which everybody that's sort of working in construction or involved in procurement will understand, and then we'll just talk about the impact of that, because that's sort of practical, and I think most people that are sort of listening in or watching can understand that. So general process for most companies is requisition. So someone on site, needs materials, let's just say, right? And they raise a rec today. That's generally been done in WhatsApp messages. Some people are sending in emails. Some people are still picking requisitions up off the phone. So we have that covered in LiveCosts, right? You can capture the requisitions in mobile app. There is some impacts of that AI will have. There's no question that, we've talked about this already, whereby, where do the lads generate the lists from? Like, sometimes they write it on the wall, right? Sometimes they write it on the wall, right? Well, let's, can we generate requisitions and PO off the photograph? That will all happen. There's no question about that. So AI will impact the requisition. There's no question. The next step of the process generally is we're either going to raise a PO off the bat, or we have to go out and get 3 quotes, right? So, I mean, just talking about that, like, how do you think AI might impact that whole part where 3 quotes have to come in?
Yeah, I think probably the best way to show that is once we kind of show what we do on the PO, we'll revisit that once you see that, because it's largely the same process as that. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, from what we see, there's full jobs of people that do that, and I don't think it's the removal of jobs. It's just making you more efficient. It's spending less time on pure data entry and analyzing stuff, and that's where it will do a great job. So somebody said it to me, a good way to look at it is, if you can look at somebody doing something and pick it up yourself in an hour or two, where it's not massively complicated but it is repetitious, that's where AI will have massive benefit. It's not going to think for you, but it will have benefit there.
Yeah. And one of the users being a data entry, right? So a lot of time when these 3 quotes come in, and I know a lot of people, we would have done it ourselves, want to collect that data, right? Because it's good, valuable information. It's how much we pay for stuff. So a lot of companies are inputting that into spreadsheets, trying to compare the products across spreadsheets, all that type of stuff. So there's no question, even with just extracting the data from the quotations, there will be an impact there. So the one that we're going to focus on today is, because not every company does that. Some companies have that process, but the one that's common is the PO, right? Anyone that's doing job costing correctly will have a PO in place, right? So that's the one we're going to focus on today. So how will AI impact a purchase order?
Yeah, I'm going to say, actually, I now believe, after what I'll show you, is that because of this process, that everybody should be considering POs, because of what they'll get, and maybe this process might support considering purchase orders. That's what I believe. I'll share my screen. Okay, just let me log in.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll try and remember that people are listening as well. So, what we do here, this is a fairly basic example of a project, but, whether it's done here or elsewhere, we set a budget at the top level. Here, this is quite a small project, and then, we would break the project budget down into smaller parts. We're just going to take one example here today, like a finishing budget of 10 grand, quite a small budget. So within the software, then, of course, we're going to have purchase orders. This can be done, from the mobile app or from here as well. So just go new purchase order. Obviously, point it to a supplier. Excuse me. Most importantly, point it to a project. We're going to drop this into the finishing budget. Cost items, materials. We'll want a delivery. We'll say, look, we want these goods maybe delivered tomorrow. And normally what we would do then is we would start, typing in lines of the products that we want, the description of the products and that kind of thing. And obviously, most likely, we might have a quotation or something to tell us what that price is. And it might be in Excel or whatever it is, but you would pop in a price from that. What we've done to help with that is, if I just duplicate this, the tab, so rather than typing it in, we provide a catalog. Catalog can hold product information. It could be subcontract line items. It doesn't really matter. But it's just to help, rather than typing in that information, you can just go to one of the catalogs, and this is all kind of customizable, where you can save items in there. So save, prices, product codes, descriptions, prices, that kind of thing. And that will help you.
Any bulk pricing you might have agreed on a project and all that type of stuff that gets saved into the catalog and then is, I suppose,
available. And it's really just rather than typing it in, you can go. So if I remove that line item, you can go and go to the catalog, find your supplier, and then add in the items then that you want. Right? So let's say I want 100 of these, and I want 5 of these, whatever that might be. You're kind of building up the list in that way. So using your own data to build up the list, which is good, no doubt about it. And then for people that might be doing similar work over and over again, then we can template that. So a good example might be drainage or plastering or something like that, where it's largely the same list over and over again, but the quantities might change. So, you could build up a list of all of your plastering materials that you generally make in an order, save them as a template, and then just drop that template in and just adjust the quantities and adjust the prices, maybe based on a quotation then as well. So that's what we've been doing so far. And then we said, well, okay, look, one of the things we might look at is, a lot of people go and get a quotation, and that is smart, right? That is the smartest thing you can do to save money is, go and ask before you buy. Because a lot of what we do when it comes to invoicing time is check prices against what might be in the catalog, and you're going to see fluctuation. Everybody knows that, and the best way to counteract that fluctuation is through getting a quotation. So putting a little bit of pressure on the supplier to give you a good price. That is definitely the best way to go, especially if they believe you might be doing that elsewhere. No doubt about it. That's the way to go.
A lot of our customers in that process would have sort of rules in place that any orders over 1,000, let's just say, has to have three. We see that a lot as well, don't we? Like where you'd say, like, if the order is over, like in other words, you don't have permission to do a purchase order unless we see 3 quotes if the order value is going to be over 1,000, for example. So, I mean, that makes sense too, doesn't it? Like, if we're going to be spending money,
I think it makes sense. Yeah, I think it makes sense. So even if you don't have time to go to 3 suppliers, if you're pretty organized, you'll do that. A lot of the time you might not have time, but even going to your own supplier, I think is going to save you money, because you're putting that pressure on them to think that they might, you might be going elsewhere for it. So, and you're analyzing it. You're not just going in off the cuff. That's where you get those fluctuations. You go in off the shelf and you're in a bit of a panic, and you're not going to your normal rep, whatever the situation might be. That's where those fluctuations happen. And without the purchase order cost, you then have to monitor the invoices coming in. So everybody's doing that has been there at some point with the highlighter, trying to highlight, what they believe the price should be. And you might know 5 items or 10 items. If you're on the ball, you might know 20 or 30 items, but you don't know them all. Okay, so this becomes a bit of a game. Then after that, you might catch them the odd time. But so what we've done then is said, well, look, this could be smarter. If you do get the quotation in, rather than having all that typing or looking up in the catalog, you can use the AI import. So we've been doing data extraction for a long time. And I can tell you now that since we've changed over to this new model, that the accuracy is absolutely outrageous. It's, sending in documents. They're mostly PDFs, but they can be images, and it will go pick off the data on that particular document and then store it in here. Okay. Now, what this one is doing is it's taken into quotation, picked out the product codes, quantities, units, descriptions, and prices from that quotation. Based on what I've done previously in the catalog, it's now looking up those prices in the catalog and comparing what I have in the catalog to what I've got previously. And that's really doing that at the right time, because before I buy anything, it's now telling me that these prices are over what I paid previously. So what did I pay previously? Well, I could just click on that, find out. This is a history of all the different prices that I've got then through time, and I can see, well, this is obviously mess data, but I can see on this particular date I had a better price by €2 in this case on that particular. So I have fuel.
But by dropping in one PDF,
yeah,
that took you all of us, I think it was about 2 seconds.
3 seconds, yeah.
And from that now, we're able to extract every line item on that quote, And B, you're saying there we can also analyze every line item against all the historic data we have against them particular product codes.
Yes. More data it sees, the more you analyze, so, and then this will go back then as far as you wish. And of course, it might be, in this case, it might be a couple of cents where you're happy with it. And then what am I doing? I'm saying, okay, well, I'm happy with that price increase. And what I'm doing is I'm saying, well, that's the new norm now, and so next time it comes in, I'm saying, well, as long as it's that price. See, there is price increases, natural price increases that happen. So some of this will be okay, but at least you're okay in it. That's the main thing.
So given we've extracted all these line items, so the quantities are all correct because they come off the quote. I suppose you could adjust them here if you wish to.
Absolutely.
Because you've basically taken the scan of the quote against the project. It's all been job costed automatically. I suppose you could split cost codes or split areas of the project, I suppose, if you wanted as well. What about the next step, right? So when you send that back to the supplier now as a PO, can we follow that through to the delivery, which is always the next problem? Can we get?
Yeah, of course. I mean, for anybody that's not familiar with LiveCosts, what I've done there is basically just did an order, pointed it to the job, and even as I'm doing the orders, it's letting me know what the available budget is for that particular area of the job. In this case, it was 10 grand, so I can kind of see based on that order, I still have 9,600 to go. As I raise that purchase order, then there's obviously a commitment within the job. So I can go to link building, go to finishing, and then you're going to see that particular quote or purchase order is now committed. So it shows up in an amber color underneath or in the bucket of the finishing budget. And then of course we can see who raised it, what price it was. And of course, now if we go in, rather than just saying materials 384, it has every single line item in there belonging to that. And as you say, the next element of this, which because we have the line items now is actually really, really easy, is the delivery of the goods. So this is not for everybody, but if you do this, you'll know there's a pain there.
Well, yeah, I mean, you say that it isn't for everyone. My experience with that is when you talk to a company, especially in the accounts team, they know it's the right thing to do, right? Is to have an invoice come in and see an order and see a delivery, because I mean that's accounts payable best practice says that any invoice comes in should have proof of order, should have proof of delivery. I think the more difficult thing is why we say it's probably not for everyone. People just get frustrated of not getting these tickets, delivery dockets back in time, where I just say, like, by the time these invoices come in, they have to be paid. I can't get the information back quick enough in order to. I don't think anyone thinks it's a bad idea to have the deliveries. Yeah. Sometimes with electrical contractors and plumbing contractors, where there's like a mountain, like a lot of information on those deliveries, that can become, it's just too much work. I get that, but in this case, you were saying that the quote came in, we just pulled the line items off it, PO then got flipped straight off the quote, that got job costed, and now you were saying that all these items appear in the quantities, in the lines, ready to be just taken off.
Well, exactly. So it makes it easier than, like, if you had a written, which a lot of people will do, and there's nothing wrong with it, by the way, is if you had a written in there, materials 384.43, well, that's sort of useful because it means when an invoice comes in, we should know that the value should be no more than 384.43. But because of the information that's in the line items, there's a benefit. So if I go and create a delivery for this, so deliveries can be created from the mobile app. But the main thing is, if you look at what detail I have every line item from that quotation here listed out with all the order quantities. Now, whether I'm doing this from the mobile, and it's pretty cool in the mobile, just kind of swipe right, swipe left, just to check them off. So very close to, how you might check it off with a pen. Pretty much the same here, right? You're just checking them off, saying, yes, I ordered one, I received one. Checking them off as you go. Or you can just go all items delivered. You would add in your document, okay, and then save that. So very, very easy to get the information back in, be it from mobile app or be it from main application.
Nice, really nice.
So this is then going to give you the information. This is the purchase order we're looking at. The purchase order then receives its delivery. So delivery obviously lives here. That's kind of sortable now by project and by budget within the project. So if we're looking for deliveries belonging to the finishing elements, we're going to get that delivery there as far as as far as we can see. Just for the
We've
approved
basically
ones.
created
There we go.
a digital ticking off exercise
Yeah.
straight off the quote, the accepted quote there.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it becomes, if you ever needed deliveries, to see deliveries from a certain supplier on a certain job, they're all there for you and digitally stored as well. More importantly than that, though, the purchase order is updated to, part delivered or delivered. So now when we receive the invoice in, we've got it line by line to say what's delivered. That's pretty cool. And then, of course, you can see who delivered it. And then, of course, as I said, line by line on what particular date. So if there was multiple deliveries there, you'd have multiple dates there. And the key is look at the information you have, and it's exact information from the quote is now passed over to the delivery, the huge advantage, massive advantage.
Yeah. So if I was that, let's say the electrical plumbing comes to mind where so much data on that, you're saying I don't have to go take a view box. I can just take one box that says I have this delivery here, and there's an image of the document that I have in hand. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and mistakes happen. That's why people do it. They don't do it for fun. Mistakes happen. So, people don't do that for fun. It's certainly see mistakes in them areas, no doubt.
So the main thing there then, the last piece of that would be we're now going to receive an invoice. So how does all this tie together?
Yeah, so you would receive invoices. Obviously, the direction we're moving in is to move the AI into the inbox, so we can get that accuracy down and start matching it back up to the purchase orders. What that looks like. Anybody who uses LiveCosts knows that basically the information will look something like this, where you have the information coming in from the on the invoice. Of course, we're picking up invoice numbers and that kind of thing here, and then of course you're exposed to the workflow. So this particular invoice is matched to this particular order. The values match. We have a complete delivery. All of the items are now in the catalog, and that's just making sure that we're kind of updating our catalog. And then, of course, if your last step, if you're connected to one of the integrated accounting softwares, we can just post that from here as well.
So basically, the invoice, just for those that are listening as well. So that invoice can basically just be scanned in the same fashion as how we dropped the quote in at the very start of the process. We're basically dropping the invoice in. And what the invoice is now doing is it's lining that up against the accepted delivery, the purchase order, which was created with all those line items on it initially, and then we have that automated way of just creating that three-way match process.
Yep, that's it. Absolutely. And you'll notice the AI import sneaking its way into the invoice, the invoice screen as well. Yeah, so it's kind of getting in there too. Yeah. Absolutely.
What if I wanted to is let's say that those line items are obviously hugely valuable. I'm going to ask a couple of questions around how we can sort of analyze them and report on them for future benefit for companies as well. But can those line items be sent across to the accounts package?
Yeah, absolutely. As they are, they're sent over to the accounting package. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a copy of them on the account side. Everything's been job costed. Everything's been no data entry here, which is absolutely unbelievable. No data entry whatsoever. Everything's completely been digitized using that AI, which is powerful. What about the analysis part then, right? So we're gathering, I'd imagine like when we get into the world of even taking in 3 quotes and dropping in invoices into this thing, like there's a major amount of data that we're going to start collecting at a line item level. What can we do there to sort of analyze that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the future, isn't it? That's like to take that information in, as I said, how that's, I'm saying it's all done today. LiveCosts help with that somewhat, but we just go back a step here. We're on a development server here, so excuse the crashes, but the LiveCosts is taking in this information, so largely helps with that today. But of course, now with something like this, it's going to see a lot more data. You're going to see information kind of pouring in, as you say, from quotations, invoices. The direction this will go in, I think, will be as you mentioned, the request for quotation. Now you can imagine what might happen there is, you send it out to 3 suppliers. Now you're receiving in 3 versions of that quotation. We can potentially analyze or get the information from the documents first. That's great. Now you have 3 versions of what you sent out. And of course, what we hope is where we'd like to get to, or where I believe AI will get to. It'll do the analysis for you. One, it'll match up, I believe, those line items to each other, because all suppliers will have different product codes, different descriptions, that kind of thing. And then, of course, trying to analyze them, because if you're doing that today, you're doing that in Excel. So that's where it gets interesting. I think, like, ultimately, we're just talking about materials here. It's going to be the same for subcontracts, right? You're receiving them all back in through Excel sheets at the moment, or whatever it might be. It's going to be the same there, isn't it? You're going to analyze the 3 of them or 4 of them, whatever it might be, and somebody else will do that now. It'll be AI eventually that does that for you, no doubt about it. For this sort of stuff, yeah, we're receiving this sort of information. So currently we have a line item report. The line item report gives you the contents of everything that happens within LiveCosts. Okay, so let's say if we wanted to, we'll just take a product code as an example. So this is one of the product codes that we had on our incoming quotations and our invoices and that kind of thing. So what this will look up is based on one job, or based on a budget within the job, or based on a supplier or a product code or description or a date range. I could look up this product code for the last year, for example. What this will give me then is every instance. I can do this based on just invoices or purchase orders, or whatever way I want to get that information. We'll say purchase orders. So how many times have you seen this product code in purchase orders or invoices? You get the idea. And I say, well, we've seen it twice. Once on this particular date, we ordered 1, and then we ordered 12. So 13 in total. And here's the different unit prices we paid across that time scale. And of course, this is what we spent on that particular product. So that's useful for procurement, because now we have we have a place to go if we're negotiating, saying, well, listen, we bought this before. Last year we paid X. Now we're paying Y.
Well, you can start to see straight away as well. Okay, when we buy 10, this is the price. When we buy 100, this is the price. On that project, someone else was doing the buying. They managed to get a much better price. Who was it that actually negotiated that rate at the time?
Yes.
All that information is available to you here on one screen, which is absolutely unbelievable as well.
Yeah, it's massively powerful. Yeah, I mean, that's only that's a really small piece of what it's going to be, but it's certainly a good start.
Okay, so what's next then? So the PO looks pretty slick. The invoicing looks pretty slick. Is next step now the analysis on the 3 quotes?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I think that if we were to say where we're going to go with it, we'll probably have a look at the invoicing side of it next, just to make sure that we're getting more and more information out of the documents that come in. That's useful, because that's going to build up the catalog, right? And then of course we're going to look at that procurement piece to see, because there's massive value there. If we can get stuff in and try and analyze that stuff against 3 or 4 different others, massively powerful feature. So that's the direction we're going in, but it's an early sight of it, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, anything that's going to save time, i.e. no data entry, automated job costing, automated 3-way matching, ease of delivery, which is always a problem out there, connection to accounts, and then the big thing there is just the level of data that we're going to be collecting there is
But I mean, look, I've been through to a couple of road shows for some of the accounting softwares, and even then they've got big things coming as well, where you can literally talk to your accounting software and tell it what to do, like if it needs to do quotation or to send a bill reminder, and all of this stuff is coming, and it's coming fast. You'll start to see it within in the coming months. I'd say it's phenomenal stuff, and just time saving. It's brilliant.
Excellent. We appreciate that. If you are listening or watching, either or, you can go to livecosts.com. You can request a demo, and we are more than happy to sort of look at your own data. So if you have some quotations yourself that you want to throw in as a real life example of how that might look in your own world, we'd be more than happy to sort of hop on a call and sort of show you how this might fit in to your workflow. But for the moment, well, thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks a lot.